beautiful soul. Welcome to my podcast or my YouTube channel. I'm your host and guide, Will Caminada, and I'm here to help you awaken, heal, and expand your consciousness. Today, I am bringing a conversation episode, and I had the pleasure to talk to Adrian Hall. So Adrian is an intuitive coach, channel for crystalline emotion biotechnology. She utilizes 17 years of experience as a licensed therapist, in addition to her professionally trained intuitive gifts, to support her clients in shifting their emotional processing system from 3D to 5D. She teaches about the new paradigm emotional intelligence, specifically about the way emotions are portals onto higher dimensional timelines. So this is super interesting. She talks about multidimensionality and how our emotions are the portals into these higher states of consciousness. So if you like my content about multidimensionality, 5D consciousness, you're gonna love this interview. And if you enjoy it, if you benefit from this conversation, I'd love for you to comment below and share this with someone that you love. Enjoy the show. Hi, Adrian.
Hi.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to connect with you.
Same. I am so grateful for your invitation, especially as a projector in human design. Like when you reached out to me, I was like, yes to this invitation. Yes, yes, yes.
Yay. Yeah, and you and I have been following each other on Instagram. And like I said, just before we start recording, I love your work. I resonate with everything you say. You talk a lot about emotions from a multidimensional perspective, which is what we're all about. And just before we get into the work that you do and the juicy stuff, the multidimensional stuff, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your journey so far, how you got here. If you want to share anything about your spiritual awakening as well.
Hmm. Yes. I love when you ask people this question on the podcast because everyone's awakening story is so unique and like vital. It has so much beautiful energy to it. So, okay, let's see. So, I'm actually a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I've been one for 17 years. And in the process of doing that work, there was this, like the muse came to me, like the human emotional system. And I even like got a proposal together. Like I submitted my proposal to like Hay House, the like writers contest. Like I wanted to write this book. And I had already been through my awakening, which I'll go back to in a second, but it never like really went anywhere. And I always like wondered why. And when you look back on your life and you see everything, like everything's happening for a reason, it's all connecting. I actually then, like, time went by. I didn't forget about the proposal, but it was on the back burner. And all of a sudden one day I found myself on this webinar. It was like about eclipses. Like I'm like, okay, cool, like let me tap in and find out what's going on with this eclipse season. And they were like, welcome to how to train as a professional psychic. And I was like, what? Like, this is not what I that's not what I signed up for. And they were like, so the woman like starts talking, and I'm like, she's talking to me. She's talking to me like, am I like, do I want to what? And I had been like meditating, and I would always get information in my meditations, like where I bought my first house. Like I wasn't trying to buy my first house in that neighborhood or that area. I never would have looked, but it came into my meditation, look over here. And I did. And I ended up buying this house, and then like all this stuff happened. Eventually I made a 386% return on investment in that property because of the location that my guidance told me. Like, so I was always like getting information in meditation, but I didn't really consider myself like psychic.
Mhm.
And then I feel like most people have this experience like, no, like I'm not really psychic. And then, yes.
Is it my imagination or is it my thoughts?
Uh-huh. Exactly. So I ended up doing the training, and I did like the formal training. Like I did like practice readings with people and got like a certification and all that. And then I started doing readings for people, and people were like, like I could tell that that's not what my gift was for. And
Mhm.
I asked my team, I was like, am I supposed to publish this book about the human emotional system? They're like, it's cool, but like something else is coming. And I was like, what do you mean? Of
Mhm.
course, you don't know. And I felt like there's this thing about giving readings which can be a little bit disempowering for people, right? Because they're in a space of uncertainty, and then they're like, "Can tell me what's going to happen?" And I feel like psychic readings are not a bad thing if it's something that you're using for confirmation and like calibration of your own knowing,
Yeah.
because sometimes you need that help to be like, okay, I can't quite see over here, but I kind of feel this. And it helps you get into alignment if it's someone that you trust and feels clear to you. But
Mhm.
when people are using that as a security blanket, it doesn't feel empowering. So I
Yeah.
was like, that's probably not it. And then one day I was in Mexico. I had like a massive tower moment, and all of a sudden this information started downloading about crystalline emotion. Like I was just in meditation. And from that point I started to understand like the reason I trained my psychic gifts was to be a channel for this biotechnology that came in, which is multidimensional emotion. It's crystalline emotion.
Mhm. Mhm.
So in my therapy, while all this is happening, I'm in my therapy work, and I'm knowing that multidimensional emotion exists. I'm knowing that all of these activations are happening for a reason, and I can't share any of it
Yeah.
because in the therapy world in the United States, it's very much a medical model. So you are not allowed to bring spirituality into the thing unless your clients are bringing it to you. And then even then, like you could say, like you and I could say, like, oh, we're both spiritual people, but then we kind of start having a conversation, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so you're kind of what you believe is a little different than what I believe. Like it's a big world,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I would have to tread very, very carefully. If someone would bring spiritual things to me, I would have to tread very carefully to make sure that I'm not, because I it's a power differential. I don't want to influence someone else's belief system,
Yeah.
right? Like tell them like this is the way and this is the only. It's not fair because it's not a pure relationship. So I had to keep all of that really separate. And at a certain point I couldn't. I was like this doesn't feel fair, like to
Mhm.
me and my own gifts, but also to like to people. Like I know something that I can't tell you. Like that's not it doesn't feel
Yeah.
okay. And that's how I got into like really taking my business online and creating a coaching business to help people learn about multidimensional emotion, because in my perspective, this is the new paradigm of emotion. Like we are all headed in this direction. We're moving in the new paradigm. We're moving from the head into the heart. And
Mhm.
what is in the heart and the body but emotions?
Yeah,
This
you just summed it up perfectly. It's like moving from the head to the heart, which it feels to me that's kind of your journey too. Like you were working as a, let's say, more traditional therapist. And then I think, I mean, nothing against the traditional approach, but it's much more a mental approach, maybe psychological, neurological. And you now are adding that heart spiritual to to that approach. So it is what for me what multidimensionality is all about too, is actually marrying the 3D, more 3D approach with the 5D, because we're not separate, right?
right, right. And even people will talk about like, well, I want to be in the 5D earth and the new earth. And I'm like, your neighbor is in 3D, you're in 5D, like it's all here together at once. Like
Yeah.
everything's here. Like no, there's no like the 5D earth is going to like drift away, or like you're going to be separated from your family members who aren't on the, on
Yeah.
the journey. Like
Or you're in the car in the traffic and you're just angry. That's your 3D moment, right?
yeah, you flip back and forth all the time. Like as you say, we're multidimensional. It's like constantly.
Yeah. And I really love this concept of um, embracing all the layers of our multidimensionality, because I see and I've seen, even I think I've gone through this period of trying to spiritual bypass without knowing that this is a spiritual bypass. You know, it's like we're still human. Yes, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but we're also emotional beings, mental beings, and we are here in the 3D world. We are humans, and um, there's no bypassing, right? It's embracing all of these and just mixing it all up, right? And going from moment to moment. So I want to know, what is the crystalline emotion? Because we're already talking about it, I feel.
Yeah. So I really love what you were just saying there about the I'm going to tell you, but I want to say this one thing. The part about embracing all of it, like I don't know, are you into the gene keys? Have
Uh,
you gotten into that world?
the human design, right?
Yeah.
Little bit. I had a reading a couple of weeks ago, so I should know more about it, but I'm still like learning.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. So the gene keys are like the deep woo-woo weeds of human design, right? Like it's a whole nother level. But in the gene keys, which actually the gates in human design and the gene keys are connected to crystalline emotion, but in the gene keys, there's three levels of every gate. So it's like the shadow, the gift, and the city. And the shadow, like when we encounter the shadow, it's all about embracing it because we don't like cancel it so that we can get to the gift. We, as you said, like embrace the whole thing. That's part of the progression. So it's
Mhm.
the same thing as being human. Like we don't just go like, oh no, like this is the ascension vehicle. Like the body is the ascension vehicle. The emotions are ascension vehicle. Like all of it's together. We work with all of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and
and
we're all prone to the spiritual bypassing because we want to get there.
yeah, and also sometimes we don't want to face the shadow. We're like, oh no, 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 don't want to go there, right? But it's like it's the way through, right? Like the
100.
shadow, like you mentioned, it's right in the middle. Right?
Yeah, it's part of the thing. So with crystalline emotion, this is such a great segue to crystalline emotion. Essentially, crystalline emotion is the 5D and above version of all the 3D emotions that you experience, right? So like anger, frustration, sadness, grief, disappointment, discouragement, like I have like 150 translations. So basically what happens is when we experience the shadow frequency of it, right? Like we experience anger, which is so sacred. Like every emotion is super sacred because it's a multidimensional portal. So what let's say anger comes up, anger is the entry point. It's like the door being opened onto this vibrational pathway. And everything, because it's multidimensional, right? Like it's like the Russian nesting dolls, right? Like the physical body is like the center one and they're all out. So as soon as a portal gets opened by an emotion, now you have a portal into other dimensional spaces, right? Other vibrational spaces because we're not moving. Sorry, time is not moving. We're moving vibrationally. Time
Mhm.
is a mental construct. So as we embrace more and more of our multidimensional selves, we find out that we're actually not moving through minutes and seconds. We're actually moving into different spaces and times, like vibrational points, right? Like you and I decided like we're going to meet at this time. Yes, we said it's 1 p.m. in Los Angeles time, but really it's just a vibrational space that we decided, hey, we're going to come together in this vibrational space and have this conversation. But this conversation already exists. Like it's already happened. We're just happened to be here now,
Yeah,
right?
it will be a now for somebody maybe 2, 3 years from now.
Yeah, right. Like they come and visit this place at a different like whatever moment in time. It gets a little bit crazy with the mind. Like well, the mind is like, huh? In any case, when a 3D emotion occurs, basically it's an energetic thread. Like there's what it is that we're creating or what it is that we're desiring and where we are now and the emotion is the beginning of the thread between us right now and what it is that we're going toward.
Mhm.
And so if we're just trying to bypass and cancel all the 3D emotions, we're closing all the doors that are the vibrational pathways on our way to get there.
Yeah,
But when we open the door and we're like, aha, and we metabolize the emotion and shift into the higher dimensional emotion, now we're traveling along that thread, moving vibrationally closer to what it is that we're creating.
yeah, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that the emotion is the portal, is the gateway. And I feel too like our emotional system is a guidance system as well.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so what happens, because I feel like we've been conditioned to judge the emotions. Oh yeah, this is a good emotion. I want more of that. This is a bad emotion. I don't want that. So whatever, sadness and anger, no. But
Yeah.
joy and whatever, it's good. So we tend to judge. That's the construction of the ego from this 3D realm. How can we allow ourselves to feel without emotion and allow this portal to open so that we can access the higher vibration of that emotion?
Yeah. So this is, I love your questions and I love the way you like say things because you just bring it so like into such clarity.
Okay.
So the first piece is really in how we even relate to emotion because actually, and this is like something that has been hard for me to actually like say out into the world, but I've said it and I'm going to say it here. Emotion itself is neutral. It's not good or bad.
Yes. Yes.
like like anger isn't bad, it feels unpleasant, but spirit doesn't care. Spirit does not care whether something's pleasant or unpleasant. Spirit cares about the purpose of it. That's it. So it's never good or bad. Like, and part of how we start shifting our relationship with emotion, the point of the matter is the focal point is what is your relationship with emotion like? That's where the work is. Do you honor emotion? Are you willing to let it in? Are you willing to allow it? Can you create enough safety in your body to allow the sensations? Because emotions are simply sensations in your body. The sensation of being hungry can be unpleasant, but it's never bad news. I mean, unless you're like trying to like not eat or lose weight or something like that, then you're mad about the fact that you're hungry.
Or
But like,
fasting.
oh yeah, or fasting, thank you. But like the sensation itself isn't good or bad, it's just a sensation.
Yeah. And it's also a guidance telling you, hey, maybe it's time to eat something.
Yeah, right? Like it's information. But in the same way that we have that neutrality towards that sensation, we can have that towards the sensations of emotion. And it's a constant, it's a constant deconditioning essentially, right? So it's even in our language like, oh, how are you today? Oh, I'm good. Oh, how was your birthday? Um, I, I felt angry, sad. No, it was a hard birthday. Oh, it was a fun birthday. Like it's okay. Like whatever happened is fine.
Yeah.
The other day I was on a coaching call and I got on the call and someone said like, how are you? And I was like, I feel very connected to life today,
Mhm.
you know? And I felt so many things that day. I felt so many sensations and none of them are good or bad. They just are. So I think that's the first piece is just really getting into a space of like really practicing how we're being about emotion, even when we talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said. Emotions are neutral. And I want everybody that's listening or watching this to reflect on that. Just, let it sink in. Maybe meditate on this because it's not something to maybe easy to understand, but it's not easy to grasp the core of it. Because I usually say that emotion is energy in motion,
Yes.
and that energy just wants to move through you. And when you feel that emotion, it finds its way and it teaches whatever it has to teach, or it does whatever it has to do, and then it goes away. And then another emotion will come, right? And it keeps us alive, right?
Yeah.
That,
Yes.
that's like also very simple statement, but like an emotionless being is not alive, or it's a zombie, right? someone who, even like people who might not be as aware, or might be in a kind of coma or a medical disease situation, they feel, they can still feel, right? They might not be able to say things, but they are feeling. So I really love that, and just an invitation for everybody to take that phrase that you just said and stay with it for a while. And just, I love what you said, is like having a constant deconditioning of what we've been conditioned to, and sort of create a new relationship with emotions. Would you say that
Yeah,
that's the way?
it is. It absolutely is the way, and it's how could I say, like, it's something so different, right? We have so much attachment to emotions being something like it's bad, like I feel like maybe I'm in a different space because I don't have these conversations with people, but it would be pretty normal. Like if I was walking in the grocery store and someone was crying, it would be pretty normal to hear someone else say, "Don't cry,"
Yeah.
right? Don't cry. Don't be sad. Don't worry. Don't be mad. Don't be mad at me. And it's
Yeah.
like, hold, hold on. Why? My partner and I got into I guess it's an argument. We don't really fight, but he was angry. And I was like, I'm really glad that you're angry right now. You are alive. Hello. Welcome.
Hmm.
Like, it's okay if he's angry. I'm okay. I'm safe. He's okay. He's safe. There's
Yeah.
something happening. There's an activation, and it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah. And I think that comes from childhood, right? Because when we're crying, the first thing that I remember, for me, like my mom would say, "Don't cry. I know,
Mm-hmm.
don't be sad." And it
Mm-hmm.
comes from a place of love,
100%.
but we just incorporate that in, we just know that, okay, I'm not supposed to be sad, or I'm not supposed to cry. um and I guess it's even tough for people to hold space, like, like you gave the example, the person is crying and you're just holding space for that person to cry. I think a lot of people are not comfortable with this. I mean, we are healers, coaches, facilitators. We are trained to do, this is our work.
Yeah.
And we try our best to hold space. But I think in general, people feel uncomfortable too when they feel that they see other people crying or expressing um, anger, right? But I love what you said about, acknowledging the emotion and saying, well, you're here, you're alive. And so in a situation like that, and maybe we can talk about the conscious relationship, which I know is something that you do too.
Yeah.
um, what would be the best, I don't want to say solution, but what would be the best scenario, when you acknowledge, maybe you're feeling anger, or you're feeling something, or your partner is feeling, you acknowledge the emotion and you know what's happening. What is the next step?
Mm. Yeah. So I feel like there could be a difference if you're just with yourself versus you're in the presence of another person,
So maybe
right?
let's talk about being with ourselves first, and then move into another person, because I think
Yeah.
that's a good, like, structure.
Yeah. So when it's just yourself, really the guidance when we're working with higher dimensional emotion, and this is something that's really cool about it. We want to open the door, and we've been talking about that, like opening the door to the portal is basically saying, like, it's okay that you're here, anger, it's okay that you're here, sadness, it's okay that I feel this way, right? That's like opening the door. When you walk through the door, essentially that's like you're metabolizing the emotion. So I mentioned emotion is neutral. It's simply a sensation in your body, like hunger, thirst, need to sleep, whatever it is. And so when the sensation is there, we stay with the sensation in the body versus telling stories about, right, about why I'm angry, why I'm sad, why this, why that. And we're so in our head, right? This is the journey into the heart and the body, is to continuously let go of whatever story we have about it and just really focus on what's the sensation in the body. The body is wise. It knows exactly what to do with a sensation. It knows exactly what to do. You don't have to know, oh, how do I feel better when I'm sad? You just have to let go of trying to fix it and let it be there. And it's literally done like this. Now, there could be multiple waves. That's okay. But if you stay with the sensation in the body, like you literally just like track it, close your eyes and track, oh, I feel like heat in my chest. Oh, okay, like, okay, now it's moving, it's getting deeper, it's getting bigger. Okay, now it's coming to my throat. Okay, like now my nose is tingling, and like, okay, now tears are coming. Like, okay, it hurts in my chest. I'm gonna cry until it stops hurting in my chest. None of that had anything to do with why I started crying in the first place, right? So it's in my work, I call it metabolizing emotion, and the body does it. It's built for that. It knows what to do. Just like giving birth, like the body knows what to do. It doesn't need any intervention, you know? So that's really what there is to do. That's the next step. And then what happens is inevitably, like, you know, when you drop into meditation and you like kind of settle in, you quiet down, and then all of a sudden things start coming in, right? Like information, images, whatever. The same thing happens with emotion. All of a sudden it metabolizes through the body, and then there's this void, and then something pops through. But the coolest thing is that you don't even need to know the higher dimensional version of an emotion. It'll just come. Like it just comes, and you don't even necessarily know it consciously, but you move into a higher vibrational space when you allow the emotion to complete, literally letting it metabolize. And what happens is that whenever an emotion comes up for you, it also like recruits all the other places where that emotion already has been stored in your body. So we know epigenetically that our ancestors, their DNA is imprinted with their emotions. Whatever emotions they didn't complete get passed down the chain. So we're holding all of that. So something that seems so like, you know, insignificant to our like current life can have such a big reaction because, or a big activation, because we're holding like that emotion has been waiting to complete.
Yeah,
all
I've
the
heard that
time.
recently on a podcast. I don't remember exactly what they were talking about, but it was something about like when you die, your physical body obviously dies, fades out, but your emotional body is still carrying all of that lifetime's emotions, or like you just said, it's a confirmation, like any emotion that hasn't been processed, you know, it's stored in the emotional body.
Yes, right. And those emotional bodies are connected to like wherever your DNA went, you know, or even people that you're connected to, or even into like other lifetimes, right? So all of it is connected. So when emotions are like, you can start to see like we've treated emotion like it's a nuisance. But when you see from this perspective, you're just like, of course you would honor it. Like, oh my God, it's been waiting hundreds of years for you. You know, and also some of that stuff, like the emotion carries information. Like I said, when you settle, and then all this information starts to come up, that's the information unlocking, right? And sometimes that information has actually been stored on purpose in the incomplete emotions coming down through generations, because that information wasn't safe at that time in the earth whenever your ancestor was alive, right? Like whatever, like Mary Magdalene, for example, so many of her codes were encapsulated in guilt, and you can see how it was coded, like how the church made her seem and all that stuff,
Yeah.
passed down through the generations, because the information that she's holding wasn't safe at the time, right? It had to go underground. So it went into the earth, it went into DNA, it went into the emotional bodies, and now we're at a time where our consciousness is high enough to be able to actually access the information that's encapsulated in the 3D emotions. Like when you understand this, you'll never think an emotion is a problem again. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what your example, because it reflects on the collective too, right? Because we are all connected. We are all energetically connected. And you can see like now um there's this healing of the feminine energy that's happening now. And you can see like the mother wound is sort of around guilt too, right? And
mhm.
maybe that, it's all kind of connected, right?
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The level of intricacy is like that the divine design is like beyond. Like we're barely like touching on to like the tiny surface of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like our life in every moment is so precious. So, in that, like even if you don't know the 5D version of sadness or the 5D version of guilt, when you are able to complete it, there will be something that comes, and energy and information is unlocked. And that's how we travel vibrationally into different spaces.
Hmm.
Because with that new information, your vibration is shifted. Even simply in being able to be with the emotion, your frequency is shifting because the frequency of an emotion is dictated by your presence with it, your relationship to it.
Hmm.
The frequency of anger is not a low frequency. How you're being with the anger, that's what creates the low frequency if you're not handling it
Yeah.
like a beautiful
You're
emotion.
punching other people.
Yeah. That's low frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so can you tell us a little bit more about this, the 5D version of
Yeah.
the emotion? So does that mean that like sadness has a 5D version, anger has
Yes.
a 5D version?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would they be?
Yeah. So the 5D version, so I'll tell you a couple and I'll tell you a couple. So the 5D version of sadness is honoring. So if sadness is here, that's because something's very, very, very important. It's
Mm,
about honoring you, it's about honoring something in your life, right? So like for a long time, I was very funny about family. My family life early on was hard. So you're supposed to love your family and family's good, right? But it's hard, man, like at least in mine. So I would just be like, yeah, okay. But my sister had a baby and my mom had already passed away. And when the baby was coming, I got in the car to drive to the hospital and I couldn't barely drive. Like when you're crying so hard that you can't see, like that. I was
mhm.
like that, and I was shocked. Like I was like, "What is this? What is this?" And I had to like stop on the way to get cupcakes, and I went into the cupcake place, and the guy was like, he saw me. He was like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "I'm okay. I just need cupcakes." And I'm sure he was like, "You sure do." Like, but it was like it was just a funny moment, and I laughed about it. But I was really crying the whole way. And what I realized, what I understood is like the bond of family, like the bond of blood, the bond of it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens. Like it's so important. Family is so important to me. I really got it in that moment. Like family is so important to me. I didn't know. Like it really wasn't in my like real awareness until that like massive wave of sadness came through. And I could have made all kinds of stories about why I was sad or why I was crying that my sister's baby was here. And I
Mhm.
could have gotten off on so many different off ramps, but I just stayed with the feeling until I really like got it. Like I honor family, my family. It feels so good to see my family. I see my eyes in their eyes. I see my skin in their skin. Like, ooh, there's something about that. I don't understand it. The resonance, the reflection is, I don't know. And that was such a gift. My relationship with my family has changed so much since that day. Simply because I could go across, that vibrational line and be with the sadness.
Beautiful. Yeah. And this
Yeah,
is then the sadness was the gateway for you to have that realization that you
exactly.
cared, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are other, like, there are interesting ones. Like, I'll tell you another one, and I like to tell a story with it because that makes it easier to see, like, because otherwise it's just like a logical like thing, and that it feels flat. You're just like, what? Okay, so I was in the process of buying a house, and the I put an offer in. I really wanted the house. It's this house actually, and the owners declined my offer, and that's disappointing or whatever. But I really, really wanted it, so I was like, okay, I feel massive disappointment, and in this disappointment, you could disconnect from it, right? Like you could be like, well, I'm never gonna find a house, or it's not gonna work out, or whatever. You can tell all the stories that you want to when the disappointment is there. But I knew that the 5D version of disappointment is recalibration.
Mm.
So I was like, okay, things are recalibrating behind the scenes. I'm just going to stay with that. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it has to do with this house. I don't know if it means there's something else happening, coming available that will be even better. But I just had the faith. I knew. I allowed the disappointment to be there, and I didn't tell a story about it, and I allowed the recalibration to happen. I just held space for that. Well, the next day I get a phone call from my realtor saying the wife in the seller couple doesn't want to sell it for this price, but the husband does. So what he's going to do is he's going to actually give you the difference. Like you're going to buy it for the price that the wife wants, but then the husband is going to come back around and give you the difference in a check and escrow.
Recalibration.
I was like, as a marriage and family therapist, I cannot recommend this. Like, that'll be a fight.
Yeah.
But that's your thing, not my thing. So I held the space and met the timeline where this house is mine for the price that I wanted to buy it for. Instead of being like, this is horrible, nothing's ever going to work, being really in the disappointment and telling all the stories about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like when I'm telling you this, you can see different experiences that you have. Like if you get into kind of like a fit about whatever it is, it doesn't really work out. But if you stay like even, then it ends up working out better than you expected because you're moving into a different vibrational space.
Yeah. It seems like and the process is the same, like you said, metabolize the emotion, connect with your body's wisdom, your body's intelligence, which is beyond our comprehension and we take for granted.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that there's like a sense of letting that go too, right? Maybe like that's like the last step. Once you felt it in your body, you stayed with the emotion, and then you let it go so that whatever is at play behind the curtains
Yeah.
can go on, right?
Yeah. And it'll be like, something outside will come, like the information will come, like my realtor called. And sometimes it'll be more internal, like the space is there, and then something comes into that space, like, oh, family is this important to me. I honor my family. I honor family, right? So it can come from inside or it can come from outside. And the letting go is an interesting piece because it's kind of like you don't have to try, right? Like when you try to go to sleep, it's really hard to sleep.
Yeah.
But if you just relax, you dissolve into sleep,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
if you
it's
keep resisting it, it's like that energy is not moving, right? It's not in motion. It just gets stuck and it
mm-hmm.
somatizes in our physical body too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's how it imprints, right?
Mhm.
And then you're saving it for later.
Yeah, yeah. It's so important to have that emotional awareness. Um, and so that was when we're dealing with the emotion with ourselves, by ourselves. So what happens when you're dealing with someone else in this, let's say your romantic partner, because I feel like the listeners and the viewers are like, yeah, go there.
Yeah, yeah. That's a juicy one. So everyone, I will say that people are different in their energetics, like in their human design. Sometimes they're going to be different in how they express themselves, right? And even how they process emotion. So I want to be like really inclusive in that way and not say like, this is how you do it for everybody, because there isn't one way, right? But I'll say what, in general, when it comes to emotions with our partners, we live, and I'm totally going to go into this space because it's, you told me already, like you can be as woo as you want to in here. um, we live in a holographic reality, right? So whatever your partner's doing is for you. I mean, you could have the same activation with this highlighter right here. You know what I'm saying? So nothing is ever personal, right? Like it just isn't. However, when you bring it into the relationship space, there's something for you and there's something for them, right? Like the part that I play in an interaction is going to have an activation for them, and the part they play is having an activation for me, and sometimes it's not the same. It can be a puzzle piece, but sometimes it's completely unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that in mind, like it's never personal in any way except for your growth and evolution. This is for my growth and evolution. Every single time a feeling comes up with my partner, this is for my growth and evolution. This is for his growth and evolution. Period. So right away with that, we just are taking the blame off the top.
Yeah.
You're this, you're that, you don't love me, none of that. That's the stories. None of that is true. Then the piece is just being a reporter of it. Oh, when this happened, betrayal came up for me. Period. Pause. Wait for it. And then hopefully you have a partner that's going like, really? Oh, interesting. And they know it's not personal. Oh, tell me more. What brought that up for you? You can process it together if you want to. Or it might just be, hey, this popped up for me. Okay, do you need anything? Yeah, like it's helpful for me if you blah blah blah, if you have a request. And if not, no big deal. But we're not bringing emotion into the relationship, making it a big drama. It's just, this came up for me. If it's actually helpful to the relationship space. So the problem that comes in is that people are looking for relief when they bring it to their partner. Like, I'm going to tell you that I'm pissed because I want to feel better. Nope. The conversation in a relationship can feel good when you talk about emotions, but only because it's connecting you more. I do not bring I'm angry to my partner because I want him to fix it. Because I want relief from it, because he can say something that will soothe it. This is my job. I'm responsible for my feelings. He's responsible for his feelings. If I bring it into the conversation space, it's for connection or for the highest good of the relationship. Otherwise, I don't bring it.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Do the personal work within.
Yes.
Yes.
So this is why, like, having your own people in your life that are whatever, it could be your mentor, it could be your best friend who knows that no matter what you say about your partner, they're always going to support the relationship and support your happiness, like, or your well-being, is better said. So you go other places to metabolize. You don't need to do it with them. And I think this is where people get into some trouble, unless both people are extremely skillful. And it's going to be in the highest good of the relationship to process it together from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's just separate.
And I think something that you just mentioned, like the language that you used, and we sometimes do that without the awareness, but we might say like, you like point the finger and say, you made me angry, or you did something and that made me angry, which is different to I'm feeling XYZ. This is my feeling, right? But I guess we all have the triggers, and like it sounds very simplistic, but it's like the trigger is yours, right? So it's my trigger, right? And so I can't blame the other. But on a more like 3D level, let's
Yeah.
say, we do have this idea that somebody said something, somebody did something, and especially if it's your partner, someone that you love, that you care about, or your mom or your family member, we do have that impression that they did something, and because of that, we're feeling that. But actually, that trigger is inside of me. So, what would you say to anybody who perhaps is aware of that, but they still get quote unquote triggered, and
Yeah.
and and in the moment they can't like rationalize it, and they can't like take a moment and be like, well, that's mine, I'm gonna deal with it, I'm gonna do my meditation or metabolize the emotion. What would you say to this person?
Yeah. So I'm going to promise you something. I'm going to promise you something right now. You're going to get triggered for the rest of your life. I don't care if you're the Dalai Lama. You're here to do the activations, like period.
Yeah.
So,
What a relief,
yeah.
huh?
Just like good.
Everybody just take a deep breath.
Yeah. Just we're in the game. This is the game that we're playing. Like congratulate. We're here. It's awesome. So I would just say like be so gentle and take the urgency out of it. Oh, like oh I am triggered. Like ooh, oh I'm triggered. Like if that's the only place, I mean that's a really good place to get to. If something's coming up with your partner, you're just like dang I am triggered. Ooh, like oh, I'm not, maybe I can't get space right now or what. But like if you can get to the point of being like this, ooh I am triggered right now. You are winning. Winning. If you have it, if you have the foundational conversation with your partner of like triggers mean I'm working on my things, these are activations, I'm not about to abandon you because I feel a trigger. Like if you have that safety in your relationship,
Yeah.
then you can just, if I say I'm triggered and my partner can get that, like it's going to be okay, we're going to
Yeah.
work through the thing, then you have plenty of spaciousness to deal with it.
Yeah.
That if you just get there, you're winning.
Hmm.
And if you do that, if you happen to do the other thing of practicing, like I'm going to take space, I'm going to metabolize, I'm going to come back maybe and tell you what I learned if it's in the highest good of our relationship and connection. If you do all that, you're like royalty. You know what I'm saying? Like you're hitting the highest levels. And if you only do that like a few times, you're still doing great.
Yeah.
Because recognize that most people are in the drama trauma circle of it, doing all the things with each other. You
Yeah.
know, it's hard not to do it. It's hard to catch it every single time.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So you're going to have plenty of practice. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess also like dropping the expectations too is something that I mean we expect our partners to know, what we're feeling or how to deal with whatever is going on, but it's we're building something, right? And it's like I'm the more I'm in this relationship, the more I get to know you, the more I get to know your triggers, the more I get to know your traumas, right? The more I get to know your past, and it might get to a point where your partner is like, yeah, I get it, why you're triggered, because something happened, I get it, because I know
Yeah.
you well, and I'm here for you, and we're gonna get through this together. But it takes time, right? Like we can't, like, we are working on ourselves and getting to know ourselves. How can we expect other people to know our traumas and our triggers? And like you said, it's the mirror, right? And it's for me, it's for you, for our growth and our evolution.
Yes. And yes. And you said it so beautifully. Like part of the trigger that's coming up is so we know ourselves, so we become more of who we are, so we understand why we're here on the planet, right? Because some of the activations are happening so that things that have happened for so many lifetimes or, within our lineage gets to be unlocked and completed. So my partner, if anger comes up because of something my partner did, right? It's for my lineage, it's for my good, it's for a deepening of knowing who I am and why I'm here. Even if I at first blush, I don't like it.
Hmm.
Who likes to be angry? But if I see my partner as the mirror, the one who's going to help me get there, the one who's going to help me get to know myself, then we see relationship in a different way. There's a spaciousness around it that's completely different versus why do you keep pissing me off?
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And what is the emotion that's like the most common that you see from, your clients, the people that you work with, or just in general in life? What is the emotion that people find the most difficult to handle? And I know that's kind of personal to everyone, but like if you could pinpoint like one or two that's like the most predominant that you see.
Yeah. Well, I think, it kind of depends. I think most people have a hard time with anger, like period. Like it's just in the collective, like anger is scary, right? In a 3D level. Because like you mentioned it before, like you could, you know, someone could be violent as a result of anger. They often are.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fear with even like owning and being with our own anger because we think it means something bad about us, right? And so anger is the crystalline version is embodied care. It's really about creating a win-win-win frequency, right? So in every situation, there's the possibility for me to win, for you to win, for us to win.
Hmm. Hmm.
So anger is really like, and the win-win-win frequency is the frequency of the new paradigm. So there's a lot of anger that comes up. You see it in the world,
Yeah.
but that's always the gateway. There's always the gateway to win-win-win when we're holding a higher frequency.
Yeah.
And the only reason anger is coming up is because we're not in the win-win-win frequency. And we're wanting to get there. We're desiring to get there. But as long as we're like, no, then how are we going to get there?
Yeah. And I think if channeled right, it can be a beautiful catalyst for expansion and for change and for growth.
Absolutely. I mean, you see it. You've seen it happen in the last few years. There have been beautiful things that have happened as a result of people being angry.
Mhm.
Like, should we tell protesters for Black Lives Matter to quiet their voice down? No. No, no, no.
Yeah.
They should scream at the top of their lungs if they want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about for you personally? What is the emotion, let's say, that you are, comfortable with, and the ones that you're still a little like, no, like I don't want you here.
Yeah.
I
I
think
think,
Elizabeth
I think,
Gilbert that talks about. I think she was talking about fear, but we can use that as in the emotion scenario. Like sometimes it's the neighbor that comes to your house and keeps knocking on your door, and you're like, I don't want you here, like get out of here. And the more you're like, I don't want you here, get out of here, the more your neighbor will come back. And sometimes it's easier if you just say, okay, come in, let's have a cup of tea, and then bye. So I
which
guess
is
it's
good.
this the same story with the emotions too. What are the emotions that you're like, yep, come in, let's have a cup of tea, and the ones that you're like,
Like, I don't want you here. No. Yeah. I think for me, sadness is probably an easy one. Like that one's because the sensation in my body feels okay. Like the sensation doesn't bother me.
yeah, yeah,
Can
me
you hear
too.
my dogs going crazy?
It's fine. Yeah, we have dogs, we have cars outside, so
You're
it's real
good.
life. Yeah, we're welcome.
um, they just want to be in the mix.
Yeah.
So yeah. So for me, the sensation of sadness is not. It doesn't bother me. Like I feel okay with that sensation in my body. I think the one that's the hardest for me is overwhelm because I don't like the behavior that comes as a result. Because I try not to be overwhelmed. I'm like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. And then all of a sudden, I'm not good. And and then I don't like how I show up when I'm overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Right? 'Cause I push people away, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's like the behavior that comes with it that makes it hard. When I'm not allowing it, the behavior that comes is not becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So that's the one that I try to like be so gentle with, because sometimes responding to overwhelm feels like a luxury. Like, well, I shouldn't have to be overwhelmed. I'm fine. I should be fine. Everyone else is fine. Why am I not fine? Right? Like, it seems like coddling myself too much when I'm responding to the early signs of overwhelm. And then the scales tip.
yeah, yeah. And I guess there's like a sense of familiarity too with the emotions. Um, like for me too, like sadness is familiar uh,
Mm-hmm.
for me. Um, and whenever I do, my breath work practice, and it's always very cathartic. I cry every time I do it, and I
Yeah.
embrace it, and it makes me feel good after because I'm feeling the emotions.
Yeah.
Um, and my dad passed away when I was 8, so that's like my childhood trauma, probably the
Mm-hmm.
biggest trauma of my life. And so I think now that I have this awareness that sadness is okay, I'm familiar with it, but anger is something that I'm not really comfortable with, and it's not familiar with me. Just like recently, I did a breathwork session and anger came up, anger like at my dad. It's like,
Mm.
and I was like, wow, like I've never felt angry. And all these feelings came, and anger is actually just one of the phases of grief, right?
Yes.
The I think it's five,
Five,
yeah,
yeah. 5 stages.
five
Yeah.
stages of grief. And I realized that I never really allowed myself to be angry at that situation, at that event, or at my dad. And
Yeah.
when you're in a breathwork session, you're very in touch with your emotions, and obviously you have to allow yourself to feel. But once you do, these things come up, and once you allow yourself to feel that, there's so much clarity after, and it's like, whoa, I just feel like a weight has been lifted off my chest, you know and
Exactly.
I think this awareness of what emotions you're more familiar with or more comfortable with is really good, because then you can sort of look for the ones that don't feel familiar or that you're not comfortable with, because there's a lot of power there too,
So much. Yeah. There's so much information, power, energy to be unlocked there. And so much, as you said so beautifully, clarity. Like, that is a gift. That is such a huge deal, the clarity. Because the more clear we are, the higher frequency we are,
Mhm.
right? Clear, like high frequency doesn't have to do with happy, it has to do with clarity, it has to do with authenticity, it has to do with realness, more of who we are. So even in that moment of like really being in touch with your anger, like that's a high frequency,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the
So
word you used, unlock, because it feels like it's a video game, like I unlocked anger. Yay.
yes,
Next phase.
next level, next dimensional space, right? This is how, and like think about just even your experience with anger right there. Like, you're in a different frequency when you unlocked it, you're in a different frequency. Like, how can emotion not be a vibrational vehicle?
Mhm.
Like, and it's such a good example. You were in a very high frequency of anger. That brings you into a different vibrational space.
Yeah, yeah. What is your vision for the future when it comes to our relation to how we deal with emotions? And you can go, future like 5 years or 10 years or 50 years, whatever
Yeah.
you feel.
I feel like I feel that people, the way that we're talking about emotion today will be the way everyone is with emotion. Like, our relationship with emotion will be something that's very creative, very honored. Like, it's a creative force. Like, because we're given this emotional system and emotional body for such beautiful reasons, and we're accessing like this much of it. So I think as we elevate our consciousness and we become more, have more self mastery, then we will be able to navigate our relationship with emotion in this high level way, and that will unlock our ability to get the beautiful magic that it has to offer us, like literally manifestation, traveling vibrationally, telepathy, like it has the ability to open so much of our like galactic human abilities, and it just requires a lot of our practice. But you look at the people in the spiritual world, they're really like into self-development, right? Like there isn't a spiritual person that you talk to that isn't talking about emotions or embodiment or self-awareness, right? That's consciousness. Expanding consciousness is also related to emotional awareness. So I feel that's really what's going to happen. This is the wave that's occurring.
Yeah.
Gone will be the days of anyone saying don't cry.
Hmm. Hmm.
Gone will be the days of people being afraid of their feelings.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what a beautiful earth. Like, I hope I see some of it.
Me too. Do you think that people will be more neutral? Like there will be less highs and lows, emotionally speaking?
Yeah, like I think that it will be more of like the way of relating to emotion will be more neutral, but also more love. Because what happens when you like what happened when you had that experience with anger, there was probably more love.
Yeah.
Like, love is our set point. That's where we live. So it might be more neutrality in terms of like you won't see as much turmoil,
Yeah.
right? But it will be there might be just as much emotion. I don't know. Maybe as we're doing this emotional work, then so much of it is being cleared from the collective and eventually it will be pretty neutral. But at the end of the day, like in the ascension process, we come to earth to experience the rainbow of emotion. When we're in spirit, we don't have any. We come here to have it in our body.
Yeah.
So we'll become better vessels for it. I think people will still feel a lot. It'll just be the way that we feel it is the way
Yeah.
we show it will be different.
Yeah. 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 Do you think love is an emotion?
I think it's a state. Like a yeah, maybe
Yeah.
it's a better state. It's also a verb. I mean, we feel it in our body, which is why the question is there, right? Like you feel it in your whole body, but
Yeah.
it's also who you are, right? Like we are love. Like we are love. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
And
feel like when we get close to who we are, we feel love. Like when you know someone, like when you have a moment where you're like really connecting with someone and you see more of who they are, you can't help but love them. You just feel it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just like you said now, you were talking about like my anger came from love, came
Hmm.
from place of love. I was angry because I love my dad.
Yes.
And so I agree with you. I think love is a state of consciousness that, holds space for all of the spectrum of emotions that we as humans feel. I have some final questions.
Sure. Yes.
I call fun and deep questions.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
you can just like answer whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
So what is your definition of emotion?
Ooh. What's the definition of emotion? I would say it's like you, like energy and motion, right? But also when you ask someone how they feel, if it's an emotion, it'll be one word. A lot of times you'll ask people how they feel and they give you a sentence. That's a thought.
Hmm.
So it's one word, maybe two words, but it's simple. Emotion is very, very simple.
Yeah. And what brings you joy in your life?
I think well, obviously my dogs who if you have a pet, like come on. Like even though they're doing annoying things right now, I don't care. Like they do the cutest things in the world, so I just love them. Like every day I wake up and I'm like, yes. I think also just it brings me joy to see people like evolve, grow, like bloom, like be so much of who they are. Like they're like people, sometimes I see people on Instagram being like their whole like full self, and I'm just like, yes. Like not what I would do, not what I would do, but I'm going, you are just fully embracing that. That makes me so happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. So imagine that all the books in the world were going to be destroyed and deleted forever.
Okay.
If you had to save only one book, which book would you save and why?
Okay. I want you to know, I'm just gonna be honest with you, that I cheated and I've listened to your episodes. So I knew you were gonna ask me this question.
Okay. You
And
had
I was
something
like,
to think about.
I'm really glad I knew this. So I have two. One of them is The Bringers of the Dawn.
My
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah. And then the other one is Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson, where she talks about inner Christianity and outer Christianity. Outer Christianity is what we all know. Inner Christianity is the feminine way,
Mhm.
the way, and it's the one that was dropped into the earth and went underground because it was not safe. And now it's coming out through the healing of the divine feminine and the healing of the mother wound and all that stuff and the movement, right? From
Mhm.
the head to the heart. So like
Yeah.
those codes are coming alive, and her book, she's like a theologian that studied at Harvard, so it's, it kind of gets that legitimacy behind the things. And she talks about Mary Magdalene's gospel and like who she really was in the whole thing, and it's so
Mhm.
much holistic, inclusive. I love it.
I love it. I'm interested now. I obviously know and love The Bringers of the Dawn, but that one I don't know. What is the name again?
Yeah, Mary Magdalene Revealed by
Great.
Megan Watterson.
Here's a suggestion too for all the listeners and the viewers.
Yes.
I'm gonna look that up. What is the one thing about you that people would be surprised to know?
Hmm. Surprised to know. I'm trying to think of like, I mean, I'm going to pick this one because I think I share this with you, that I'm very into fitness and like nutrition and all that stuff.
Yeah, me too.
And yeah. And for me, there's something, it's connected to overall, I mean, of course it's connected to overall well-being, but it really to me comes down to clarity, right? Like the point is getting so much more clear and clear and clear every day, and that's such a huge part of our like spiritual, emotional, mental well-being, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah,
is having that focus on actual physical health.
yeah, yeah.
You know?
Taking care of our vessel and our, the temple.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I love, and it grounds me too. I don't know for you, like it
Yeah.
makes me feel grounded and like in my body. And I think we need that too, as much as we need to like meditate. I think we have to find that balance, that multidimensional balance, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Next one is, let's suppose we sign contracts before coming to this life. And then we choose what we came here to learn as well as to teach. What
Mm.
do you think this would be for you in this lifetime as Adrian?
Ooh, I think it's like I feel like we have this stuff in our charts, right? Like in our human design charts and our astrology charts, and I feel like mine's really clear. Like it is clearly about bringing the new paradigm of emotion, and what we come to teach is what we come to learn is what we come to teach. I mean, it's because
Yeah.
it's intimate, right? Like I was born into a family where emotions were really hard. They were like so scary, but also you couldn't ignore any of them. Like you're there. And I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm an empath. I'm intuitively gifted. Like I have triple water and my sun, moon, and ascendant. Like it's all. I've had like astrologers like do readings with me, and they're like, "I saw your chart and I wasn't sure who I was going to get in this call." Like I'm really surprised at how grounded you are because you are so water.
Yeah. And water is emotion, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly. And what's cool is that water is so imprintable, right? And so there's a lot of codes that get imprinted in water, right? And our emotions imprint, right, the water in our body. So it's all so connected. So I'm here to learn about it through being the person so that I can teach it.
I'm glad that you reconnected with that purpose and
Yes.
remembered it.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
and then the last question, which you might know, it's called Three Truths. Um, Imagine that years from now, you're about to make your transition from this physical life into the spiritual realm, and everything that you've created, all the courses, your Instagram posts and books that you will have written, they've all been deleted, and you have a piece of paper in your hand, and you can write your three truths that will live on, that will be sort of your legacy for your family and for the planet. What would be your three truths?
Mm. Feel everything. Don't complicate it. Trust your body.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I did not have that prepared. They just came in.
That these are the best. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Feel everything. Don't complicate. And what was the last one?
Trust your body.
Trust your body. Beautiful. Love it. Before we close this beautiful conversation, um, is there any project, any courses, anything in the pipeline that you would like to share with us, and also how people can connect with you?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Yeah, I have um, one of the hardest parts about dealing with emotions is just not having the clarity around emotions, right? We keep talking about the clarity. So I have a course that's on emotional clarity, and it's literally like my all the downloads of all my emotional intelligence hacks from being a therapist for 17 years, but then also this information. So it doesn't touch too deeply into the multidimensional stuff because you have to have a foundation of that like emotional clarity to like really get into working with the multidimensional stuff. So if someone's super interested in this, but they're feeling like, man, like I don't know, like I have a lot of overwhelming emotions, that's a great place to start.
Mhm.
The other thing is this is coming in, this is like very new. My guidance has been very strict with me about sharing crystalline emotion, like the actual shifts. So the way they show it to me is they show me a visual journey from 3D to 5D, and that's an audio recording. So and it comes with like instructions for how to do it. Each one is different. So the my guides have finally let me create it in a more accessible way. So I have like 150 translations, and all my private clients get the full library. But now what they're saying is, okay, you've done enough education. Now let's see if we can give it to people in a more accessible way. So there's going to be a library that's coming probably in the next couple months, not couple months, maybe like a few weeks. That'll be maybe like 25 to 50 emotions, like the actual shifts, like the journey from 3D to 5D for those emotions, and some teaching around it. So it'll be a 3 month kind of like membership. You have access to the library for 3 months to work with the shifts and start to rewire your emotional system from 3D to 5D. So that's coming soon at an accessible price, and I'm really excited that they gave me the green light.
Yeah, wow, that sounds amazing. And I checked your website too. There is like a free introduction course as well. Would you say that's a good way to like start working with you and getting to know a little bit more about your work?
That's a really great way. It's obviously it's free, so you just go. The best place to go is to my Instagram, which is 5D Crystalline Emotion, and you just click the link in the bio. It's start here, and then there's a masterclass about the frequency of emotion, which is neutral, and it kind of get into really like what that is there in that masterclass. And then there's also an opportunity there to request one of the crystalline emotions so that you can get kind of like a taster for it and really hear what that audio journey is like. So that's a really great place to start if this is a new concept to somebody and they're like, huh, like what? But I need to know everything about it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think hopefully this conversation has opened up to your work. And as usual, I'll leave all the links in the description. And Adrian, I want to acknowledge you for your authenticity, your vulnerability. And I want to thank you for doing the work that you do to create a new paradigm, to create this new earth. I appreciate you and I thank you.
Oh, that's so beautiful. I take it all in. Thank you so much for the work that you do, for this connection, and for the invitation. I've loved like every moment of this conversation.
Me too. And I'm sure the audience, the listeners, and the viewers too. And I hope to connect with you very soon.
Sounds great. Have a great day.
Thank you. Much love. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you would like to learn more about Adrian's work, you can go to her website, www.adrianwalkerhall.com, and follow her on Instagram at 5D Crystalline Emotion. As usual, you'll find all the links in the description below. And once again, if this has brought you value, please share this episode with someone you love and leave your comments with your biggest takeaway. As always, keep shining your light, keep your heart open, and let love lead the way. I see you in the next episode. Bye.